Everybody, Apex, how's it going? I'm Andre Powell. I'm running for town council. And yeah, if you get a chance to join, that's amazing. We are going to be answering some questions that I've gotten from email. So I appreciate all the questions people ask me, the conversations I get to have out in public. Uh, but again, ask me anything really. I think I'm going to answer just about every question I get. Just want to send a reminder that early voting starts October 25th. The final date of vote is November 4th. So I am excited. Uh, how do we change Apex? How do we make things, better for everybody involved? So with that, as I said, we get a lot of questions via email, which is kind of cool. So I really appreciate that. One of the questions we got is I saw you at the Apex Chamber of Commerce Forum. During the closing statements, it looked like something one of the candidates said may have made you react. I don't think it was a closing statement. I think it was after the Roberts Rule question. And it wasn't video, it wasn't recorded, and if you weren't there live, so I don't want to put anybody on blast, but the candidate said something about process and how they restated that we're sitting in the we're all following rules, and I think what made me react is that if you're so rigid on process historically, then some things don't change. I just kind of, let's see, how do I, okay, I'll just tell you how I feel about that. If process is the way we operate, slavery will still be enacted. If process is how we enact it, we acted and we just ran everything, then Jim Crow laws would still be a thing. So I think and believe that societal change will predicate legislation. And for that to be true, we have to make room for different ideas to be a better society. And I don't take a narrow focus when it comes to what that looks like every day. So yeah, I reacted. My wife often tells me that my face speaks volumes, and respectful of the rules, I didn't really engage in that. But that's what it was. The Roberts Rule thing, sure, that can be a thing, but we have to always make space for new information. So I personally don't live that way. It goes against, like, we should be able to question things, but we should also be respectful. So disagreement is fine as long as you're respectful. So that was the reaction. And it's, it just seemed like a very politician thing to say. We respect process. Well, the 94 crime bill, who did that help? I could go through a litany of things that, because we didn't consider current information or the impact of people where process doesn't work, I can give 1,000 reasons in my professional life where, I've had to adjust because things were different. So that's what that was. So if you're wondering, this is my Yeti that says NaCl periodic table for salty, and then my name. So great gift. I'm not salty. I just like to share my opinion and perspective on things. Another question that came in is, what do you think about the mayor's post about housing? I think the post was spot on. The comments were a treasure trove of the nuance of the issue of housing. And that's really the type of dialogue we should be having. Um, there were there were a lot of different perspectives on what the housing issue that we face, like, that could lead to solutions. So I really thought it was a great video, and yeah, the comments were amazing. The benefit to social media is you can get different perspectives, and you have to sift through the trolls. But um, I believe I actually engaged with some of the comments that I agreed with. Not saying that those are the principles I lead on, but having, again, new information helps you to have a different perspective. And when you get enough people together, you can often find solutions to complex problems. So, great question. Thanks for asking. Uh, I'm going to just kind of touch on something. Like I always say I'm careful with my words. And in my career, I found that there are two ways to, there are two areas that people struggle with, right? And I'm going to do the easy one first and kind of explain my principle on that and why I think the way I think. It's stress versus pressure. Stress, in my view, are circumstances or things that are happening where you don't really see a way out, or the time limit that you have to deal with them is uh, it's nondescript. So you can't really plan for it. So over time, you're stressed out, probably get tired and exhausted. While pressure are the things that you commit to or that you're aware of an endpoint that for a short term you can work through. They're just additional for the moment. So I try to stay in that lane and identify if something is stress or pressure. If it's pressure, I don't get concerned about it too much. If it's stress, I kind of, I don't freak out, but I'm like, oh, I hope this ends sometime soon. The second part to that is how I look at the difference with problems. Is one complex or is it complicated? Most problems are complex. There's various ways you can solve them. You just have to narrow down to get to a solution. The complicated ones, there's less solutions available, and they're going to lead you down a narrow road. I don't think a lot of problems that we face personally, professionally, or in society are overly complicated. It doesn't mean I minimize the effect. It just means that, that's what opens my brain to look for, okay, there's got to be an answer, and I have to find the right person to ask, what they see and how they see it. So just to give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain of how my brain operates. Stress and pressure, I can delineate between the two, and I often work in pressure. I rarely work in stressful moments. And complexity, and a complicated task or a problem. Typically most things are complex. You just have to step outside of the problem to find a solution. So that's how my brain works, or how I kind of picture my brain working. Okay, the next question is, how can we improve communication and transparency in Apex? That often comes up a lot with people I speak to. Transparency is the word people often use. I still think that it's under the umbrella of communication, and we just have to get uncomfortable and be more open to feedback or dialogue. And the thing is, sometimes when you hear what you don't want to hear, you kind of get defensive. And generally, I don't do that. And if I need to clarify what the, where I'm not understanding somebody, I'll take the time to do that. But I think we just have to get comfortable with maybe um, people are going to tell us something we don't like, and that's okay. And the second part to that, I would say, again, we just have to we have to increase the cadence of what we're saying and what we're doing, or what we're saying and what the results of what we committed to. People are okay with that. So I think it's a fairly simple thing to do. Be okay with the feedback, whether you like it or not. And number two, increase the cadence. Transparency is a byproduct of having better communication. And I've worked with people that like in their business they struggle with that, but once you kind of lay that foundation, it gets really easy. Um, and I don't think that we just have to be unapologetically truthful with each other, even when we don't know something. So I think that's a big barrier. At the, not to go on a tangent about this, but as I was listening to the public feedback at the last town hall meeting or town council meeting, a lot of it, their communication fails. And we just, as a town, we should want to make sure that people understand uh, our position, but before then, we should make sure that we've heard the what their issue is, or even if it's a compliment, right? Um, so just be okay with being uncomfortable, and throughout most of the town hall meetings, I think that in town council, right, semantics, that's where a lot of the breakdown is. And on the mechanics side of it, how does the town staff increase and improve their communication? And that's and it's going to go both ways. How do we get uncomfortable to hear the thing that we need to hear? And how do we get uncomfortable to say the thing that we need to say so we can get beyond some of these obstacles? But great question. My favorite color is blue. Um, Another question that came is, do you feel the town is growing the right way? Uh, Ness. So Ness is a little bit of yes and no. I don't. I don't want to. Yes, Ness. No. Yeah. The town has got opportunities. This is like one of those for me. Um, I would. I'm always open to continuous improvement. The challenge is being able to address the things that you're not doing well. And this all supports my last answer. Some of the things that we're not doing well are communicating. And I think that we're going to run into an issue with the finite resource that we have, which is land, and the environmental umbrella. And also, that's going to collide with people's perspective and perception of the needs of the town being met. So, in that aspect, I think that's a challenge. And how do we start to change what we're doing, what we're saying, and what we're shooting for now before it becomes a problem? Um, so, there are a lot of things that we do well, and we are, I love this town, so I'm okay with that. But I can also say, well, you need everybody to be aware of what's going on, what potentially may go on. So, like right now, the 2055 planning sessions are happening tonight. As a matter of fact, I'm here, so I'll probably, if there's a recording, I'll catch up or I'll read the cliff notes. But I think that that is part of the things that we do well, where we try to get people involved. But I think that I don't think that the gap in communication is helping some of the progress in multiple areas. Um, so Ness, I think we're growing because we're going to grow for the amount of time that we can while this is a desirable part of Wake County, and while North Carolina is a desirable state to start a business or to grow a business. But I think we can do more, and that's in a myriad of areas that we could do more. I often think about a lady that lives in Jackson Heights that said all she wants is a sidewalk, and she's lived here for over 40 some odd years. Um, that should be an easy fix. Like the low hanging fruit, we gotta figure out a way to make those things work. The future planning, we have to make sure that the future planning is sustainable, that it's going to provide a true benefit. So, great question. My answer is NES. That's NES. What do you think? Uh, what do you think is the biggest issue for the town, and why? Like currently, it's there are two things that I hear about a lot. Well, this actually, but they all come under the same, or they're in the same bucket, and it's the growth. So the data center is it is the elephant in the room, and I understand how people are trying to navigate those conversations that are currently on the town council. Um, I understand the the impassioned uh, pushback that the residents of New Hill and Jordan Point are giving it, and I think that they're spot on. I agree with them. Uh, but what I think is the like generally it's the growth. How do we grow sustainably? And the way I envision that, the mayor kind of touched. Well, some sorry, in the mayor's post, there were some comments that touched on that, where there are seniors or people that are empty nesters that want to stay in Apex. Their concern is that they won't be able to afford it. And sustainability to me means that it's going to go on for at least 50 years. I'm not going to, live forever, but I would love for this town to live, well beyond my lifetime. Um, so the balance that we need to seek in the decisions that we make should not be about us. They should be about the future. The ones that are more immediate, we should consider who's going to be impacted by that. And I see a disparity between the older residents of Apex and the younger and new residents of Apex. That's the gap that we need to figure out, how do we bridge that. So changing the way we look at growth is going to be huge. I hope we're committed to that. And I use the word committed. It's, personally, I lost a couple years ago, well, 2 years ago now, I lost 31 pounds. I won't tell you why I gained 31 pounds, but I can tell you that my commitment was to work out 5 days a week. And I did that, and I lost 31 pounds. A good idea would be to lose 31 pounds and do nothing different. So the difference between obtaining an objective or goal and just having a bunch of great ideas is what you're committed to. Commitment leads to action. That's where we have to be as a town. If we really feel committed to working on housing, because we're probably not going to fix it. We're probably not going to be able to impact as many people as we'd like to, but we can start to work on it and put things in place that help us to make improvement. If we are committed to improving the relationship from the town council and the staff to the residents, because we need each other, it's a relationship, then we have to commit to certain things. If we want to have uh, if we're going to guide ourselves to better results, we have to have good leadership that's without bias. Um, it can't be about an agenda. It can't be about, I need to just kind of show up so I can go run for another office. I mean, I'll be quite frank with you. I don't plan on running for another office. Like, this is like, I want to focus on what I can focus on. So, uh, yeah, that's my long answer. But that's the one I believe in. I know my team is trying to well, they have a list and they're trying to make sure we have the best things to talk about. Well, they're all the best things. Um, okay. This is a nonpartisan seat that is held by Democrats. How do you fit into this? Truthfully, I'm an independent. I can't state it enough that I don't believe any party is the gatekeeper to good ideas. Uh, I see that in my personal life, my professional life. I work with people that are partisan, or they have their political beliefs that, you know, are reflected by one team or the other. But we work together, we live together fine. And I think it's important for me to, I mean, what I really reflect in who I am, I'm not partisan. If I hear a great idea from somebody that's on a, in a different group, I'm not going to be poo-poo the idea because I didn't come up with it, or somebody that, you know, believes or aligns with what I believe in didn't come up with it. That is intellectually dishonest. I don't know how people operate that way. Um, so in some things, I may lean more to one party, probably, like, that's true. And some things I may like agree and probably lean in another direction. But in general, what I desire is what's best for more people. I agree with the ideas just because it's factual, not because there there is a like some agenda attached to it. If something is factual and it benefits people, that's what I want to do. What I often find with people that are partisan is that they, and like super partisan, they have to have it a certain way. Um, and I just think that's not the point. The point is, are we helping, especially in politics, are we helping people? Good example would be Wake County compared to, so Wake County, Mecklenburg, and there's like probably three other counties that um, are at the top of the food chain in North Carolina. There's 100 counties, and we have, although we are like, we we have challenges with our educational budget. It's not the same as Cumberland or uh, like other counties that, Surrey County or Curie County, I believe it is, um, because they don't have the tax base, they don't have the infrastructure. There's a lot of things that they don't have that we are the benefit. We benefit from because of where we live. I am I think what's important is that we improve education. So if I was in a looking for a role, or in a role that I could affect that, I would angle to improve education in multiple places and for more people. So I look at the town the same way. I know this is there are different opinions, and I don't. I never talk to people and say, "Are you a Democrat or a Republican?" I don't really do that in my in my day to day life. But my goal is to help more people. It's not to do anything partisan. Um, so I've just it's just an example. I spoke to somebody a couple of weeks ago that was talking about housing, and he said, "Well, I think we should relax on some of the environmental requirements for homes." And the item he talked about were the car chargers. And I'm like, yeah, that does make sense. If we're trying to get affordable houses, and the developer's uh, objective is to have the best profit margin, do I want affordable house or do I want a car charger? If I know that what the developer is looking for is a good profit margin, how important is that car charger? It's probably not. You know, over time, as electric cars become more mainstream, not just a niche product, in my opinion, the consumer will drive the installation and the equipment down, the price of those. So, like, immediate, what's more important, bringing down the price of construction or a car charger? I would pick the bringing down the price of construction to get to the affordability of the home. I didn't ask the person what party affiliation they had, but that is I mean, it's a valid opinion. So I look at problems like that as opposed to, well, X. I've got to have X. Well, if the big thing we're trying to achieve is Y, then I can probably go for the better win. So that's my long answer. There's I'm going to age or date myself here. When I was early in my career, there's a lot of focus on terms like think win-win, and that comes a lot from Stephen Covey. Well, and that term got thrown out a lot. Think win-win, and they often forgot the other part to that, or no deal, right? So win-win or no deal. I'm okay with no deal. Like, both parties have to feel like they are getting what they're looking for, um, or something that helps them get closer to what they're looking for it to be a win. If you're giving up so much that it's not a win, then you should be okay with no deal. Um, I operate like that, pretty easily, because I want you to be happy and I want to be happy. I don't want to be unhappy so you can be happy. And I hope that people don't want to sacrifice my happiness for their happiness. I just don't think that's a good long-term play. So just something, another principle or something I try to stay in that framework where, we have high standards, but, reasonable expectations. And again, your standards are typically going to be fairly high. Your expectations are based on that's how humans are. So will they ever meet? Probably not. But it kind of keeps things in, a relative state of normalcy. That was me just sharing more about me. Um, I had went to Oktoberfest this past weekend. That was pretty cool. Um, and I really enjoy the activities that the town has. But one thing that's recently been getting into my head since I read that Reddit post, and I've been looking for this, is what things does a town have for small children outside of big events? Although people brought their kids to Oktoberfest, I salute that. But I think that is a very good question. So maybe we should, explore with Parks and Recs, like, what can we do to make sure that, well, specifically they said downtown, what can we do, or are there any plans that are in the near term to accommodate that thing? So now that's in my head. So every time there's a big event downtown, or I look around for what could little kids do like right now. Um, and when I go downtown, I do the same thing. I'm just like, hey, that's actually a good point. What is something that we can have for a little? And they had a bounce house on Oktoberfest. So I'm not saying the kids were completely stonewalled, but just that feedback from somebody, it meant a lot to me, and I consider it a lot now. Let's see what else is going on. I know I annoy my team sometimes. They're like, what? Uh, I don't try to fill the empty room with noise, but okay, I'll let them sit, and everybody on my team works too. So who knows? So the another fun fact, and I think I may have mentioned this before. I'm not really a big social media person, and I think that the one reason is because I I like to talk to people, and I often see there's a lot of just negativity on in social media comments. Like, you can even reading articles, like if you ever go to the comments, God bless you, because you're setting yourself up. But I've been trying to kind of, you know, get a feel of, like, you know, what different people are saying, how they're saying it, why they're saying it, if they're just really upset, or if they're just trying to share their opinion, if it's a bot, you know, little things like that. And I find it, I kind of find it refreshing that there's a lot of people engaged through their own channels. And I was thinking today, like, well, if you get a seat, well, how do you continue to get feedback from people? Well, I'm fairly committed to, you know, still knocking on doors, like, and making myself available, just to say hi, at least the knocking on doors at least once a month. Um, you know, but just, you know, going to every neighborhood and kind of seeing what I can see, and taking some mental notes of, you know, what can we do better and what do you need. So yeah, just thought I'd throw that out there to you. Well, maybe I spoke too fast today. Okay, here's another question. What is something you have learned from the campaign so far? Um, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I think that um, communication is like, for somebody that had to learn soft skills, it's a very important part of relationships. And um, the hesitation for some people to have those tough conversations, it's kind of it's kind of sad. But I can see that if I look at the residents of Apex as an individual, and the town and town staff as another individual, or maybe separate this into two people, like the council and uh, than the staff. I would say that that's probably something that we need to work on. And it's actually quite a common problem in some organizations I've worked with and some, people I've mentored. Like, you have to get over that. Um, I'll tell you why. One of the things that used to bother me, and when I would find out an employee left, and I typically would reach out to the employee and say, "Hey, what happened?" Uh, Like, direct reports, and they would tell me the situation, and I would always find myself going, "Yeah, I could have fixed that, but it's now too late." Uh, that always bothered me, so I made it a point to, just have a real open door policy, because I felt like I let somebody down because I wasn't aware of a problem that could have easily been solved. They got frustrated and they left. Um, I don't, I never liked that feeling. And I tried to do everything I could to prevent that from being something I had to deal with. So I can kind of see some of the same tension and hear some of the same tension when people, like, people tell me legit their issues. What agitates them is the lack of communication or the feeling like they haven't been heard. So that is something that that kind of doesn't, well, it does bother me. Like, we have to do a better job of being accessible. And that's a whole, right? I'm not trying to call out any individuals. One thing I will say that's consistent is that people do feel the mayor is pretty accessible. I mean, uh, same thing with Terry Mahaffey. People feel he's pretty accessible. So those are two names that, as I talk to people, just perception, people associate them with, like, listening to them. We need to expand that and see what that does for the town. See how that helps us to weather some challenges. I don't think it's all doom and gloom either. I mean, I'll say it again. There are things we're doing well, but we can definitely do better. So that's one thing I'm learning. Like, most organizations, most relationships, uh, communication's like the number one problem. So that's why I strive to listen. I try to listen before I open my mouth. That's why this is sometimes kind of uncomfortable, because I care about what other people want to communicate to me, because I see how when you don't have that, it makes things difficult. So, that's one big thing. There's another thing that I've learned from this campaign is that people care. Like, people, the residents of this town, and even my fellow candidates, they actually care about what they're trying to accomplish. I'm not asking about motivations, but generally, I feel like people care. So uh, that's a small part. Well, it's a big part, but it's a small part. It's me trying to pivot from, like, solving problems. I actually had the president of a company I worked for um, remind me. He said, "You're really." What did he say? It was he goes, he's always been impressed with how I changed my career path to become a software engineer, and he was equally impressed and called me the trains leave the stations type of guy. And I was like, well, I guess that's good, but thank you. And I am an operations guy, but and I try to focus on my soft skills as much as possible because I understand how important people are. Before I go to the next question, I do want to say something because I just mentioned it. The people aspect of what's going on is very, very important to me. Um, we had an opportunity to meet with the leader, the town staff leadership, and ask them some questions. And my question was like very, it reflects who I am. Is what are your staffing goals, the challenges, what's the turnover, what are the obstacles, and do you feel that you staff the positions? Because I know they're all hardworking people, but I know they're not doing the day to day. So for what's important to me is, do you have the resources, people, tools, equipment to do the job? And are you able to identify why people don't want to stay, and what can we do to improve that? Because at the end of the day, the staff can help us to have an even more amazing town. So I think it's very important that we identify those things, and we look at not the town manager and the assistant town managers as the ones like uh, doing all the work. They're probably driving the cars, but we need to make sure that they have, and it trickles down. Everybody's got to feel not empowered, but have the ability to do the job at the best that they can do. Uh, so that way they can have the good results that bubble back up. So I just wanted to share that with you. And it's something that I often don't talk about, but I wanted to let you know that like my focus really is on people. It's not just like, I am a data guy, but it's not just like the numbers. All right, the next question. How would you balance fiscal discipline with the need for public services and investments? Yeah, I need more information. Um, I see that's how you can box yourself into like doing something wrong, right? So fiscal discipline for me as means, what is our budget? What is our initial plan? And in my experience with P&Ls and budgets, that sometimes things need to adjust up or down, or you may see an immediate need that you have to address. Um, and I would probably, but I also feel like I was telling one of my friends a while ago, I don't think business people should be in politics because, like, the initial thought is I need to make more profit. And I don't think government works that way, right? Uh, it should be net zero and like wise investment. So I don't want to box myself into the answer, but I'll tell you that um, there is some carryover from personal finances and professional finances, uh, and the need to be a good steward of the things that we need. The the idea of making smart investments, uh, looking at what on a 5-10 year plan or 3-5-10 year plan, what does this investment do? Uh, Case in point, at the last town council meeting, there was a art installation at 14K. Cool. Uh, Councilmember Gant asked a fair question. Well, does that include maintenance? Cool. The beautification of the town, amazing. The story behind the piece of art, awesome. That's a good investment. I don't see it like if we have a budget that says we're going to make capital expenditures like this, that falls within the budget. We have X amount of dollars remaining. Let's move forward. Let's just, let's not be an obstacle. So I look at fiscal discipline as being exactly that, but also understanding that you may have to adjust up or down in some line items because, life happens. And, I do believe we should take care of people. So if we're saying, well, you're not being fiscally responsible for giving employees raises, I'd be like, well, I think you're wrong. So we need to figure that out. We need to find out why we disagree. My position would be that I want people to have make enough money to where they're not doing a poor job, where they're being paid fairly, it's an investment. Uh, I would love to not have GFL as a trash service, because I feel like it's the garbage mafia. But there's really nothing we can do about that. So it's a gambit. I don't want to box myself into an answer, but that's kind of my train of thought on that. Generally, it boils down to being a good steward and making wise investments. So great question. You almost got me, because I try not to make statements like that without enough data. My favorite color is blue. And this is for my team. I know that we are live on several platforms right now. We need to kind of, I think one of them, you can't interact with chat. So what we should do in the future is make sure that we like publish the email, so people can send like chain gun or a machine gun, like a bunch of emails through. So that was just a little bit of technical housekeeping. The Denver Broncos won last Sunday, so what a great way to start my week. Next question: what do you think is needed in terms of infrastructure investments in Apex? So great question. Complicated answer. Don't have enough time to answer it tonight, but I'll just kind of give you the framework in which I think about this in. So a lot of our infrastructure, if you're looking at utilities, we may have partnerships with Cary and or Holly Springs, or so that makes that answer complicated. Then with the roads, most of the traffic I experience are on roads that are managed by NCDOT. I know there's a plan to widen 55. I wish it would start sooner than later. So it's a hurry up and wait game, I guess. And I also think the first thing before we start looking at that is doing a review of the current plans we have in place, such as the sidewalk map, looking at the land usage map. Just trying to get staff to say, okay, we've made some zoning changes. What's the current impact on these things? We have X amount of developments going in. What is going to be the impact? How does that affect these other things? And then we could reprioritize or at least understand what we may need for investments. And I don't think that answer is very, for me, it's not clear. Nor do I think the communication is very clear on what that looks like. So I'm very cautious to make broad statements without having information. But my line of thought would generally be, okay, based on the things we've changed, approved, what does that really look like, and what does that affect going forward? And then we have to kind of reprioritize. And if that means having different conversations with the state about X, or our sister cities about Y, then we need to start having those conversations now. You really shouldn't wait for a problem to be a problem if you're aware that something's going to be impacted. That's a great question. Do you think our main street downtown is healthy and successful? If not, what would you do to change that? I well, there's going to be a streetscaping project that starts, if I remember correctly, early 26. Um, as long as Common Grounds and Salem Street Pub don't close, I'm general and Tap Station. I'm generally happy, but I want the other places to be successful too. We have a new Italian restaurant that the name escapes me right now. My my general sense with that is, this sounds, well, it's me. Business will business. Like the bakery at the like in the center of downtown has been several bakeries. Um, Businesses will come, they will go. I think what we want to do is like Scratch is amazing. Like I think it's a cool location. What I think is we should ask the business owners, uh, like what's helping them and what can the town do to support their business growth. Um, I'm very adverse to offering suggestions when I don't run that business, um, because I personally believe business will business. Right? They're like, great operators are going to do what they do. People that are struggling or they hit obstacles, where we can support them, we should help them, but we need to ask them what they need. Um, I'm yeah, I'm hard pressed to tell a business owner what's going to be the right thing and what we can support and what help we can offer. I'd rather know what they're asking for and see if that's something that fits in our plans. But the other way around is not the way I'd like to go. Serafina Restaurante. That is uh, the new Italian place. Wow, this is a good question too. What's more important for our town right now? Building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing, expanding, better utilizing our existing homes and storefronts? So, two things have got to happen at once. Like most of our town's revenue is generated by residential as opposed to commercial. Um, that's not sustainable. And there's got to be, I would venture to say that, talking to the economic planning team and see, who are you trying to recruit to come to Apex, and who's currently interested in coming to Apex, right? So that's one part of that question. Um, the rehabbing, I mean, like existing home sales, I don't see a lot of those in Apex, but I do see a lot of, like, especially in the downtown center, like homes being like ripped down and rebuilt to be beautiful homes. So I think we're in a unique spot uh, where both, like, multiple things have to happen at one time. And yeah, I don't. That's a tough one because I need to see some more information, the behind the curtain information, so or somebody can direct me to what those things are. Have some more conversations with some of the owners in downtown, for example. But then when you look at Beaver Creek, I mean, we had the Michael's Pop Shelf, and it was something else in between Michael's or before Michael's and Pop Shelf. We want to make sure that we're attracting businesses that have a long shelf life, and that they're going to be a good fit for the community. I'm not anti big box store, but I'm like on the fence on that because I'd rather. I often feel sometimes that people that, like, individuals or small businesses are more of a asset than national chains. nothing against national chains. Every now and then I go to one, but I think that people that are going to thrive typically are the ones that have more skin in the game, and they're not answering to shareholders. I'm not anti big company, but it would be cool if we could attract more people that really are invested in the town, um, and that they're here for the long haul. So it's, all those small businesses close too. I'm not ignorant to that. I'm just saying, like, ideally in my mind, is like, how can we attract people that are going to want to commit to the area for a long term? Companies, especially, corporations, they're, as long as the profit is good, they're here. If it gets shaky, they're closing. So, again, multiple things have to happen, and we have to have the right balance. Great question. I probably didn't answer the way that you're looking for, but I'm always hesitant just to blurt out some magic fix. You almost got me on that one too. How do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in our town? Well, again, it's meeting people where they are. And I think the town is trying to, or they're understanding that that's a need. How do we make it more prevalent, and what the DNA of our community is? That's a work in progress. For example, the planning session that's happening tonight, that's huge. But do people go to the website to find out about it? Is there an email newsletter? Uh, is it a text message? Is it social media? Is it something in the mail? Do we make an announcement at the next large event downtown? I don't know, but I'm sure there are ways that we can communicate these events where people have ample enough time to plan, and to enhance that, the feedback session, if you can't make it live, but we'll give you 48 hours to provide input if you watch a recording on YouTube, that would be huge. So sometimes people can't make it because of, work, kids, birthdays, whatever it may be. We want to look at how do we expand the feedback that we get so we can consider that as we're making decisions. So I think expand the channels, expand feedback windows within reason, and just continue to look for opportunities to engage with people. I think that's the simplest way. Okay. Well, we have like a minute and 30 seconds before we're all wrapped up here. But I can't say enough how much I appreciate this time to answer questions. We're going to, put these on our social media channels, and hopefully, if you had a question that I answered and you're like, hey, he answered it, share it with your friends and family. Again, October 25th is early voting. November 4th is the last day to vote. I'm excited for what's going to happen with Apex, one way or the other. At the end of the day, I'll still be here. So, yeah, I'm open to feedback. I'm open to questions. I'm open to listening to your concerns and how we can, hopefully solve those, or at least get some better understanding, and you can be heard. And we can improve Apex together. And more often than not, people say things to me that I'm sure other people are thinking. So that's why I appreciate the emails, because I'm sure if one person's thinking, there's probably 20 people thinking it. So there's that. Yeah. And again, next Thursday until the 30th, ask me anything. No, really. If you go to apforapex.com, on all the social medias, I think TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Facebook, if I didn't say that one. I really appreciate your time. I hope you have a great evening. In Apex, we'll talk to you soon.